We spend so much of our lives desperately searching for that one massive overnight breakthrough. But today, we're going to look at the data and the psychology behind why trying to completely transform your life in 24 hours usually fails, and what sustainable method actually works. True transformation is actually much quieter and, honestly, a whole lot more powerful. So think about it for a second. Why exactly did your last 30-day challenge fail? Or that super aggressive New Year's resolution? We constantly try to force a complete life overhaul overnight, right? We expect to become this completely different, highly disciplined superhuman by Monday morning. But usually by Wednesday afternoon, we're right back exactly where we started, feeling totally defeated. Well, there's a core truth to human behavior that explains this perfectly. As the quote goes, most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a few days and underestimate what they can accomplish in a few years. We are just absolutely terrible at judging long-term timelines. The biggest transformations in life rarely happen through these massive, loud breakthroughs like you see in the movies. They happen through small, almost completely invisible improvements that are repeated consistently over a long period of time. Number 1, the dramatic change trap. We live in an incredibly fast-paced world that relentlessly promotes extreme instant transformation. We all crave the perfect morning routine, the perfect diet, the perfect workout, and we want it all by tomorrow morning. But it's an absolutely unsustainable cycle. First comes the excitement. You decide you're going to be a runner, so you go out and buy the $200 running shoes, you get all the expensive moisture-wicking gear, and you enthusiastically throw out every single carb in your pantry. Then comes extreme effort. You run 5 miles on day 1 despite not jogging since high school. Inevitably, this leads to massive physical and mental burnout, which leaves us quitting on the couch just 3 days later. Listen, most people don't fail because their goals are impossible. They fail because their approach is entirely unsustainable. Number 2, the agony of invisible progress. We fall into that trap because humans are biologically wired to expect immediate results. It's like planting a seed and wondering where the tree is the very next day. To really get why this fails, imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a freezing room that's 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You start putting in the grueling work, and the room warms up to 26 degrees, then 27, then 28, then 31 degrees. You are putting in all this effort, expending huge amounts of energy, but visually, absolutely nothing is happening. It's still just a block of ice sitting on a table. This right here is the absolute agony of the invisible progress stage. But here is the crucial point. When the temperature finally hits 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the ice begins to melt. To an outside observer, the breakthrough appears completely instant. It looks like it happened right at 32 degrees. But the truth is that every single previous invisible degree of progress actually mattered. It was all building latent potential. The sad reality is that most people just quit at 29 or 30 degrees because they think their efforts are totally wasted. They simply never stick around long enough to reach their melting point. Number 3, the 1% rule and the compound effect. If massive overnight changes just lead to burnout, the antidote is getting just a tiny bit better each day. Literally, just 1%. This brilliant shift completely removes the overwhelming, paralyzing pressure of needing a massive breakthrough today. Reading just 10 pages of a book doesn't feel life-changing. Doing 10 push-ups doesn't feel life-changing. But when these tiny actions are repeated over months and years, they compound. Think of it exactly like compound interest in a bank account. You don't notice the pennies adding up day by day, but eventually the results accumulate relentlessly until the outcome is entirely different from where you started. Number 4, the dark side of compounding. We have to be incredibly careful here though, because this mathematical reality works just as powerfully against us. It's not just a magical positive force. Think about 1 hour of mindless scrolling, or consistently staying up 30 minutes too late, a little bit of procrastination, slight overspending on things you don't really need. None of these negative 1% habits seem harmful on an isolated Tuesday. You won't ruin your life by skipping the gym once. But years later, the accumulated, compounded consequences of these daily behaviors become totally obvious. Your life is rarely shaped by giant, dramatic decisions. It's shaped by these small, repeated behaviors. Number 5, paradigm shift, identity over goals. So how do we guarantee we stay on the positive side of this curve? We need a profound mental shift. Most people spend their entire lives obsessing over standard goals, saying things like, I want to lose weight, or I want to read 20 books this year. But the 1% rule focuses on something much deeper, your identity. Instead, you say, I want to become someone who takes care of their health, or I want to become a reader. Instead of asking what you want to achieve, you ask who you want to become. Because when you do that, every single 1% action you take isn't just a grueling step toward a distant finish line, it's a literal, immediate vote for the new identity you're building. Number 6, paradigm shift. Action creates motivation. This one requires challenging probably the absolute biggest myth in the self-improvement space, the idea that you need to feel a surge of deep emotional motivation before you can start. The reality is the exact opposite. Waiting for motivation simply creates delay. Actually, scratch that. It creates total paralysis. Action is what creates motivation. Starting is almost always the hardest part of any task, but tackling just 1%, say doing just 2 minutes of a task, completely removes the need to feel deeply motivated. Anyone can commit to 2 minutes. The task feels so small that you can just start. And once you start, the momentum builds on its own, creating the exact motivation you're waiting for. Number 7, intensity versus consistency. When we let go of extreme effort and stop waiting around for magical motivation, we realize long-term success is rarely about how hard you can push yourself on your best day. Imagine someone studying for 8 grueling hours, completely exhausting themselves, but only doing it once a week. Compare that to someone studying for just 1 hour, but doing it every single day. The person studying daily will almost always outperform the marathon studier. The same goes for someone who walks briskly for 20 minutes every day for years versus someone who works out intensely every day for a month and then quits forever. Consistency is what turns ordinary, boring actions into extraordinary results. Number 8, surviving the invisible phase. To be consistent, you have to survive the toughest part of the journey. The biggest obstacle you'll face is the need for delayed gratification. You must stay committed when it feels like absolutely nothing is happening. If you're wondering where to begin that commitment, start tiny. Walking just 15 minutes daily, going to bed a mere 30 minutes earlier, saving a tiny amount of money each week, learning 1 new concept daily, or reading 10 pages. None of these feel entirely significant today, but implemented consistently, they have the power to completely transform your trajectory over the next few years. And this brings us to our final insight. The ultimate goal is simply to become slightly better today than you were yesterday. That is literally it. You don't need to be a completely different person tomorrow. Remember, your future is rarely determined by one massive, exhausting decision. It's determined by the small choices you repeat every single day. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. What could you improve by just 1% today? Look at your own life. Where are you demanding instant results right now? Pick just one tiny thing today and commit to it, because 1% really doesn't seem like much at all until enough days pass and you wake up to realize it changed absolutely everything.